why I picked Seattle is because a lot of my friends had gone to California, and it seemed like kind of the place to go. And Seattle looked a lot more unique. Seattle was close to Canada. I also like Canada very much. So I thought, it's a great opportunity to just go visit Canada from there. And
Right.
largely Microsoft, which was the largest software company in the world at the time, for a long time, they were
Yeah.
located here. So that made it an easy decision for me. Like, that's where I'm going.
Okay. And so I guess another point of reference that it seems like we both have worked for Microsoft. And when I was working for Microsoft, I was working for their VR department for the
Oh
headset and
yeah,
HoloLens.
right. I
And
forgot about
so
that.
yeah, so I was with them for about 3 years, traveled all around the world, showcased the product in beta version. Just a lot of the clients and different partners that Microsoft had. We went to China, Africa, Europe, you name it, South America. And so tell me a little bit about what you were doing in Microsoft and then your transition from that to owning your own company and starting Chronos.
So I've pursued many dreams in my life. I mentioned that one of them was to live here, right, in the United States. I also have the dream of starting my own company. So, and I had my dream of working for Microsoft, which happened 2 years after I moved here. So when we say Microsoft, Microsoft has changed a lot. It's a very
Yeah.
different company today. But when I joined Microsoft, they had just surpassed 30,000 employees. So it was just very different at the time. There was a feeling of a startup in some ways because they were growing really fast. But if you talk to people, even in this area, they didn't really think that it would grow so big. They thought, oh, it's at its peak. It's maybe a bubble. But Microsoft ended up surpassing 100,000 employees, which in the tech industry was really remarkable.
Yeah, that's something else.
The tech industry was growing, and it wasn't very big at the time. Now in Brazil, it was really super small, but even in the United States, it was still growing, and a lot of companies were surprised that what did Microsoft or companies like Microsoft had in terms of value, because they were listed in the stock market all of a sudden, but they were basically just a campus with some computers and people working, right? And a lot of people
Yeah.
didn't understand the value of software. Today we do. Today it's very established, but I kind of joined Microsoft around that time, not too early, but also somewhat in the beginning. And my goal was to establish myself as a software engineer. So basically, I was a machinist in Brazil. I
Okay.
went to a school called Senai. I don't know if you know, but it's very popular in Brazil because it's
What state was that in?
that was in São Paulo, but
Sao
it's a
Paulo?
national program. They have apprenticeship programs like all over the world. It's kind of it really trains you at an early age, like 14 years old. I think
Hmm.
they have programs for adults, but their main program is for really almost like a child that's starting to work. You do it full time. You do it for 3 years. You log a lot of hours in the lab and learning theory and learning in practice. So I was really blessed with that opportunity. But um, I started working with CNC machines, which is using computers, right? And
Hmm.
then I was just fascinated with software, and I thought I got to really take a big jump because there's no real industry in Brazil for that, and people
Yeah.
didn't understand it in Brazil. You had to buy all the computers that were expensive and imported. So when I came here, my goal was to work for Microsoft, and when I had the opportunity, I was really establishing myself as an engineer. So I was there for 6 years, and I had that opportunity, and it was great. Then I left to pursue my dream to start my company. Uh, that was a real lesson for me because it's a very different world that we could talk about.
Yeah.
But since then, Microsoft changed a lot. It became much more mature. It got different CEOs, right? It got two different
Hmm.
CEOs, and today it's just a very different company. At the time, I got to work on the Windows operating system, and basically, Microsoft had two major products, Windows and Office, for a very long
Right.
time. And at the time, everything just made sense. Today, it doesn't make sense to really work on products like that anymore, right?
Sure. And so, at what year did you decide to leave Microsoft and start your own thing?
I left Microsoft in mid 2003.
Okay.
So at the time, we had just started working on Windows Vista. And we were really on top of the world. I
I
remember
remember
walking through
that.
the house.
Yeah, I
I
remember
remember walking
Vista.
through the halls of Microsoft and engineers literally, because we were working on the Windows team, right? Literally, they would say, we could just make anything and people will buy it, in part because they were a monopoly, but there were Windows was responsible for over 95% of all operating systems at the time.
Yeah.
Linux wasn't even a thing, and that's when I think people got very complacent, which resulted in Windows Vista being a pretty big failure. Uh, but I was working on that, and that's when I left in the beginning of it. We had just launched the operating system prior to that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I did notice that when I was in Microsoft for a little bit, that there was a little bit of a energy where the company was so big and it was doing so well across the board that many projects that started from within the company that they thought were going to be huge never saw the light of day. And you could probably account for this, how there's so many projects that are being worked on, but they never even get released. They'll tend to just scrap full teams and projects because it's not really playing out the way that they thought. Do you think that's because what you said earlier, people became a little bit too confident, a little bit too comfortable?
Microsoft was a very big company even when I was there, so I can only speak for like my department and things, right? I don't know
Yeah,
the entire. I mean, you do know the culture a little bit in terms of the whole corporate culture, but in terms of like the Windows team that I worked on, yeah, people got very arrogant, and that's just something that goes with
success.
the nature of it. Yeah, yeah, it was incredible, an astounding success, really. I mean, everybody there, we were all making a lot of money, and there were just endless opportunities. I wasn't an entrepreneur at the time. I had a lot of ideas. I've always had a lot of ideas. Today, I consider myself an established entrepreneur. So, in hindsight, if I could go back, I would have spoken up and really expressed my ideas and sought funding that we had inside the company
From
because
within the
it was
company.
there. Yeah, because it was there. And if you went to the right person and you said, I have an idea for a product that I think is going to be successful and popular, but I need to build a team, I need to make it a reality. I think it was fairly easy to do,
I guess if
right?
you would have
Because there
done
was a
that,
lot of that happening.
I
Yeah.
probably would have been working on your team
Yeah, it's
later
possible. I
down
mean,
later down the road, right?
right. Yeah, I was very young at the time, and I thought very differently. And a lot of these ideas, I just kind of kept it to myself. Told a few of my coworkers, but didn't really put myself out there. Didn't really put my neck
On the
on
line.
the line, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, which is what you have to do a lot of times. A lot of people at Microsoft did that. They really took a huge risk, but then that paid off because Microsoft was in a unique position to really produce products and bring them to market.
Yeah.
So, having said that, there were a lot of projects that didn't go anywhere. Windows and Office were the cash cow for the company. I got to work on both, which was really rewarding to me. But some projects were successful, others were not, and Microsoft really put their hand in a lot of different things. I got to
Sure.
work on Encarta as an example. Encarta is actually something that I dreamed of. When I was a child, my parents ended up spending a lot of money on this huge encyclopedia. Right, the books are really tall and they're this thick, and there were like 20 of them. You're supposed to have the whole knowledge of the whole world in that
Right there on your
library, right?
fingertips. Yeah.
So of course, a lot of us thought of something that was pretty obvious. What would it be? What would it be like to put that on a CD-ROM, right? And make them more interactive instead of just text and images, right?
Yeah.
And we did that, and I got to participate in that. It was a bit of a stint for me. I wasn't officially on the team, but it was fun. It was fun. I got to work with them, and that was one of the things that I would say it was pretty successful, but it wasn't their main product. But Microsoft had the unique opportunity to do things like that because they had so much revenue and so much funding that they could really afford to work on all this variety of projects.
It seemed like they were definitely aware of building an ecosystem where lots of products depended on each other. And if you got this product and you can connect it with this product, and then so much creating a world where you don't want to leave the Microsoft world is sort of what I picked up from them.
Yeah, I mean, they actually wanted to work on everything. They wanted to own everything. They wanted to
Yeah.
be the industry, you could say. And the culture at the time was very much, it's almost like a religion, right? It's heresy to use someone else's product, even if your product is inferior. Even if your product is inferior, you use that and you say it's better than everyone else's, and you introduce it to the market that way. And Microsoft had a lot of success that way. There were a lot of people that would refuse, even people that didn't work there, to use anyone else's product. And for a time, even after I left, it was not it was looked down to bring an iPhone to work, for example, because the iPhone was very new, and at the time it wasn't something that everyone had. And of course, it's okay to have an iPhone. So in the beginning, it was really looked down, like, why aren't you using a Windows phone or something? But you know, Microsoft spent billions of
I
dollars
can answer
on
that one.
and they lost money on that, you know. But
oh yeah, I think that's one department Microsoft never really got it right, was the cell phone. I don't know why, but they always had the opportunity and the, you know, the leverage, but they just never quite did the cell phone part right.
You know, I don't want to be too opinionated on this, but there are things that you do where you succeed, and there are things you do that you don't succeed, and that's just that. There are many things they did that were directly competing with Apple where they didn't succeed, like the Zoom, right? Zoom was a product that would compete with the iPod. Now, Microsoft had a lot of success introducing products that would just compete with someone else's product. They had just a lot of money to spend, but in some projects, they just wasted billions of dollars. One thing that gave Microsoft a lot of confidence that they can do it, in addition to the monopoly that they had, was Xbox. So Xbox was really built from the ground up. They were competing against a major company, Sony, and they were really head to head. And even to this day, some people are really hardcore Xbox users that will not use PlayStation, and vice versa, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And then other people will use both, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, they're both really great. They're both really comparable in quality." And that's really amazing that Microsoft entered a very different industry, which is video games, and they really achieved success on many levels, right? I mean, what's the name? The name Halo was a mega success.
Huge.
That
they
they acquired, right? Yeah.
That's one of the classics.
And so I think that because of that, because that's a company in itself that many people don't get to even accomplish as a company. Microsoft basically built on another company inside Microsoft. They thought, well, we can really get into these markets and succeed, and the rate of success is really high for us. And in some ways, it just wasn't. And then when you realize that you're just not going to win, you've already spent multiple billions of dollars. And that's not for me to judge, right? Because I don't make those decisions. But you know, working on some of those projects, I had fun and I had a lot of luck, and it was a really great time. It was different at the time. The mentality was different. Today, Microsoft is considered another company. You know, have you heard of the term defanged?
Defanged.
Yeah, it's a term that some people use in Silicon Valley. It has to do with Facebook, like the big companies, Facebook and Google and Apple, but I think Microsoft is not included in that. You know,
and
so
what
today,
what does it entail?
It's the companies that dominate the industry.
Okay.
Right. So there's kind of a mention in terms of when you're talking of those companies, right? And Microsoft isn't really that company anymore. At the time, they dominated the industry, but today, they're not even a major threat. For example, if Microsoft went away, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, and their cloud business disappeared, we would still have an industry.
Yeah, you would have a lot of other options.
because they're not even the major player in that. Amazon
Yeah.
is, and then you also have Google and
Google.
other companies.
Yeah.
But Microsoft is a major player in that. They're just not essential,
Sure.
So they've become a very different company. They're a lot more responsible. I mean, with their finances at the time, when I was there, it was a lot of fun. We had parties every week for the whole company
Yeah.
with
They actually kind of
unlimited
did that. When I was
unlimited
there, they
wine.
did a lot of that
And
too.
look, check this out: unlimited wine and beer.
Yeah.
They would never charge, and they would never say, they would bring companies from outside to do the catering, and they would never say, you've had enough alcohol. And
Yeah.
that was a fantastic time, but I suspect they don't do that anymore.
Actually, while I was working there were still plenty of events, different, aspects that you could just go and sort of turn off the work environment mentality and just
Yeah.
have a good time with people. So that still happened. Now, probably maybe not as often or that much, availability as far as free things just to grab and just enjoy yourself. But they definitely put some effort into creating parties. After a lot of the HoloLens events, there was always a party. There was always where they start to bring out the alcohol. Everybody started to have a good time, just chatting up. And you probably have gone to several of these events where they're about a week long. Everybody's showing up. Everybody's staying in hotels, and there's demos happening. There's different new products being showcased, and so I do remember that was a lot of fun. They get you with a company card. You're out there in a different city, and you're just enjoying yourself, but you got to do what's important, which is do your job first before enjoying yourself in a way where you can't carry yourself. And so as long as that was never an issue, like you said, they didn't mind how you went about things.
Yeah, I think that, I'm speaking from my memories from when I was there, of course. There are many things about Microsoft that I liked that I didn't see in other companies after I worked there, right? The parties that we had were really company wide a lot of times. It was really remarkable. Like when I'm talking about endless supply of wine and beer, we're talking the whole company, right?
Yeah.
Which is, it was the largest company in the software industry for a long time.
For a while, yeah.
That's really remarkable. Everybody worked really hard. We all worked really hard. In fact, sometimes people had to remind us that there was a party going on because it's not like we were just partying all the time. But every time that we went there, the energy was really incredible. And it was always, there was this feeling of celebration. Like we worked really hard, something great got accomplished. We're going to talk about that and we're here to celebrate that. So it was never like partying before the work. It was always like, hey, take a little bit of a break. It's time to relax and celebrate now because we've worked really hard and that's really paid off.
Yeah.
Very, very rewarding.
All right, thanks for watching this clip from Appropriate Culture. If you want to watch the full episode, go ahead and check out us at appropriateculture.com. You can also check us out on social media platforms at Appropriate Culture. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.